Hey, take our advice, or it ain't no dice. Cause these podcast questions, they aren't answered twice. More seasoned than allspice, more filling than puff rice. Our podcast suggestions are our tickets to paradise. Take in the sights, bring your knowledge to new heights. Grab your wine for a sip and your meal for some bites. No need to play nice, you can be imprecise. Cause if we abandon this ship, we got a flotation device. All right, hello everybody.
Hey there.
It's Ashkahn over there.
Yep.
And today's question is...
We don't know who you are. That's not...
Thought you were going to introduce me. I sort of did an alley-oop and you just kind of like wandered off the court, you know?
I was giving both of them to you.
It's not how an alley-oop works. I'm Graham. I couldn't see in the studio. I'm just gesturing at him madly to try and fill in my name, and he's just scratching his back, so... Okay, today's question is, we are forever battling what tasks to delegate to our employees and what should be our duties as an owner. Yeah, I hear you on that one. Obviously, basic cleaning and booking tasks are given to our employee, but I find myself stuck with the brunt of emails, PR, advertising, etc. We're very close to gaining an additional employee, but I'm wondering what's a healthy amount of expectation for your employees? What do you take on as owners, and what do you give out to your staff?
Yes, so it's a big question every business has to ask.
Yeah, there's no answer. There's not like a guidebook out there of a business owner of like, here's what thou shalt do, and here's what thou staff shall do, thine staff.
But, there are probably some kind of realities of running a float center that you should at least consider with all of this. Not every task is as easy as other things, as you know, right? I mean, training people up to run the transitions, clean the tanks, check people in, book people, all that sort of stuff is obvious because it's, happening day in and day out.
It has to happen.
It's like the
backbone of your business.
But also, it doesn't take that long to train someone on how to do that. Getting someone to the point where you would actually feel comfortable having them like run an advertising campaign that you wanted to do or something like that's a lot longer, and it takes more trust, and you probably need a little bit more experience and marketing know-how and kind of have put more thought into that general world than just like 2 days of training is gonna teach you. So I think one thing we just need to be a little bit realistic about is the fact that we are running businesses where we have staff that are typically making a little bit above minimum wage. A lot of float centers have employees who are in college or just out of college. We're not necessarily hiring a full staff of people who are making this a career to work in your float center. And you got to recognize the fact that people might only be around for like a year before they decide to go sail on a boat like somewhere or do something else or go to grad school or whatever it is that they're doing with the next step of their life. And so I think it's important to realize that spending a ton of time training just anybody or putting a lot of responsibility into just any employee's court needs to come with the recognition that you're probably hoping that this person like stays around a little bit and then they're not just there for 6 months or 8 months before they jump off to the next kind of like thing in their life. So this is where having some kind of different levels of employee might come in handy. Like you might just recognize that you have some employees that really that's all you are expecting out of them. You just want them to book, make appointments, clean the rooms, hang out with customers, figure that stuff out. And it's okay if they happen to like leave 8 months later with short notice. Your business isn't going to fall apart because like so many very important critical things were relying on them.
Yeah, and I'd almost say like that, like I think the sane thing to do is to plan on having your staff just run the tanks and scheduling and standard maintenance and everything that goes into keeping your center operational. If it happens that one of your staff members is like a PR expert and that's what they did for 3 years and now they happen to be working in your float center because they love float tanks, for sure, take advantage of that expertise that you've gained along with your staff member. But whenever... And we try to do this all the time, and we still do it. We've just found some okay systems to make it work. But we try to find people who are multi-talented and who do have a lot of skills and have things they can bring to Float On besides just being able to talk to customers. And functionally taking advantage of that has caused us a lot of problems. Like, I really wish that Float On could almost just be run completely internally, even for things like getting out press releases and this kind of higher-level marketing stuff. And the truth is, I think it's almost unfair to require that of your staff when the rest of running a center can be so demanding just in itself.
And, there is some middle ground, I think, between these things. Like, there's some space between you doing all of these kind of higher level marketing things and you putting it entirely onto someone who is one of your employees. Like, a lot of times what we do is someone will work with us on something. We'll be like, hey, we're going to write this thing. Why don't you write the first draft? And then we'll do like an editing pass. And then we'll kind of explain why we edited it certain ways. And that both is part of a kind of longer term training process. And, it does save you some work. You didn't have to sit there and kind of like gruel through the first draft of something to get the skeletal structure of what you want. So there is that kind of middle ground where you're both saving some legwork on your own, but you're still having oversight and you're still making sure that it gets released in the the quality that you'd like it to do, and you're getting someone trained in the process.
And another good way to think about it, I guess, is almost just like using a smaller example. So if one of your customers backs a chair into one of your walls and punches a big hole in it, right? Who's going to fix that? Is it you as the owner, or is it a staff member who you trust for doing repairs, or is it a maintenance person who you actually call in from an outside source? And it's kind of the same for marketing, right? Like, are you going to be in charge of marketing? Do you want your staff to pick it up because you want it to be so built into what you're doing on a daily or monthly basis that it's really important that you have it all in-house? Or is it something that even as you're delegating out to marketing professionals, and the people in your shop are just running the shop, and you have a marketing agency that when you need help with marketing jumps in and does a lot of that?
And one thing I think that helps with this, or, it at least helped us, was like sit down and actually just try to break down what is involved in running your float center. So like you can ignore the super routine daily stuff of cleaning and booking and all that stuff, but actually be like, okay, well, I need someone to update my website. I need someone to do advertising. I need someone to run social media and go through it, even if all these are probably you right now. Like, actually breaking down what you're doing into chunks is a really easy way to have it all in front of you and be like, hey, I actually think it'd be pretty easy to get staff trained up to do these certain things, like running payroll. That's probably something that would only really take like a few hours to train someone up on doing, and then it becomes a routine thing that's happening every 2 weeks.
Yeah, but if you have like a payroll system you're going through, not like doing a full
doing your own in-house payroll is not what I'm talking about. But yeah, like there are probably a decent handful of kind of administrative, slightly more repetitive tasks like that would be on the easier side of turning over to someone else. And then there's things like, I think, marketing, like higher level marketing, like campaign planning, which I think is probably some of the hardest stuff to turn over, because it just requires like the fact that you've maybe done years of research into marketing and you're thinking about kind of like larger scale, more abstract ideas in terms of what you want to get accomplished. And in things like that, that's when it's good to have like brainstorming sessions and involve other people in the process and kind of slowly start tipping that scale less on you and more into other people.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's no assurance anyway. Like, there's no assurance that you're going to do a good job in marketing. Yeah. Like, certainly, we found that out. We're not experts in everything.
But you'll at least feel better about what you're doing because it's your idea.
And same thing, like, even if your staff has a lot of experience doing something else, that's no guarantee they're going to do a good job with you. Just using the marketing example of sending out press releases, even if that's what they did for a living, they still probably did that for a living and spent a good amount of time on it for a healthy wage. Maybe they don't even have the same motivation to do it for you. Or maybe it was years ago and they haven't been in the industry for 10 years and things have changed so much that although they're helpful, it's not as much as you would hope. And if you hire contractors or consultants or an outside agency, I've heard tons of stories of people messing up the marketing and not getting any articles or any real response from the marketing efforts that they're putting out there from agencies. So there's no right way to run your business, and there's no one right decision for how to delegate and who's doing these tasks as well. And kind of any of them takes both vetting and, if it's not you doing them, some kind of monitoring to make sure that they're actually turning out and maintaining their quality over time. Like, even if you do get a nice system set up with a marketing agency and it's working for 6 months, you might see the effect start to die off after then as they focus on other clients too. So any system that you're not in charge of has these extra components you also need to kind of bake in for making sure that they carry on.
And one thing I think is worthwhile to like be careful of is I think it's really easy to hire people who want to work at a float center, and like within a few weeks they're really gung-ho about doing all sorts of other stuff. Mm-hmm. You hire them and like they tell you that they used to do PR stuff and they're super into it and they really want to do your PR things. And I would just be careful and put some brakes on when you're in situations like that, because it's happened to us a lot where someone's really into
So many
something
times.
super early, and we're like, okay, cool, let's do it, and we get together with them, and
So
then
we're really easily excitable too.
yeah, like our
so-
tails start wagging, like, and and we start putting responsibilities on their shoulder and like getting things set up, and then pretty much within like 3-4 weeks they realize that they're way busier than they thought, and like running their actual just normal day job in the shop is a lot more work than they thought, and they don't have the spare time during their shifts like they thought they would. And then 2 months later they're off doing another job or something. And so it's just really easy to get kind of wrapped up in that. And people you hire are typically real excited to work at a float center, and they think it's really cool, and they're really like genuinely into the idea of like contributing more.
And I think floating just gives you crazy ideas. Like, to be, it's like you get
lot of
excitable
energy,
people
like-
in a float tank, and they're just like, oh my God, like I just thought of this amazing thing.
So we pretty much have like a rule set for us where we don't even allow people to take on more responsibilities than the basic day-to-day shop operations until they've been with us for a certain amount of time and get kind of elevated to like a higher wage in a certain position in our place. Like it's we like very carefully make sure that we're not getting ourselves into something too fast to watch it kind of just fall apart a few weeks later.
Yeah, we didn't even let them talk to customers for 7 years. They have to just observe, be the learner.
We have a
the
spare
student
float
during
tank in
that
the
time.
back. We just lock them in there for until they're ready.
So no, I mean, it is really important, and like delegation in general. And once you realize that, you immediately come to the conclusion that it's also not easy. And so I assume that that's where this question is stemming from. So, a lot of this is probably just reiterating that, especially if it's your first time delegating out a lot of these things, it'll probably take some time. Like if you're trying to delegate out a new responsibility, it might take anywhere from a couple months to half a year or something to really feel like the person you're delegating to will do things up to the standard that you want and you're able to fully duck off. So it's not something where you can just decide you're delegating and then the next day you're not doing something either. There's almost this period where it's more inefficient because you have to be doing the work alongside someone to make sure that they're trained up to whatever it is that you're doing and trying to delegate as well.
And people are just really never going to do things the way that you do.
Yeah.
And like that's
for better or worse, just
that's
different.
not like
yeah.
a bad thing, but like it is hard to realize at first because in your head everything you do is the right and appropriate way of doing it. And so when someone does it a different way, you're like, I don't understand. Like, why aren't people just doing it how I would have done it? And it's because you're just making up your way, and it's tough. It's a tough thing to have to deal with at the beginning when someone gives you back something and you're just like, like I should have just done this myself. Like that's a very frustrating thing that you have to kind of train yourself out of.
Yeah, some people who are more organized than we are say that you should fully document any process and be able to run through it yourself before you start delegating it out, at least for the non-high-level professional type things. And, I mean, that's probably true, too. Like, documentation is definitely a great way to feel comfortable either with staff doing things or bringing on external consultants or agencies to do it.
Yeah, and it's a good thing to do while you're training people. If you're like, okay, I'm going to try to get somebody else to do this, make it part of the process of you teaching to them what you're doing to just like document it as you go along, because then that's the easiest way of like actually realizing everything there is that you need to tell to somebody else is like you're just in the moment where you're like, oh yeah, I got to tell you this too, huh? So just write that stuff down as you go through it, and then even if it doesn't work out with that person, it's going to make the next person you try to go through that with a lot easier.
And so it's interesting because at this point, I think we've actually delegated just about everything except really, really high-level decisions at Float On.
Yeah, and it's almost less work that we're doing now in the shop as much as like consultation. Like something comes up and we're kind of there to like have complex conversations about tricky decisions. And then, the actual implementation of those decisions is much less kind of us doing actually the work involved.
And the ownership over the decisions too. Like I mean, it really does feel like we're consultants at this point. Like we come in, we are able to have ideas bounced off of us. We give feedback back, and then I end most of those conversations with Marshall, our shop manager, just saying, "Hey, we like make your own decision based on this. Like we trust what you decide. It's ultimately kind of up to you because you're in charge of the shop."
And you have to give people that actual autonomy too. You can't like give people the responsibility and then get really upset when they do things in a way that you didn't want. Like you have to accept that they're their own person making their own decisions, and like with that responsibility comes the right to make those decisions. Otherwise, like it just seems like not a fun job to have when you have all the responsibility but none of the like actual like authority or decision making power.
And I guess we could like put our feet down at some point, but so far at least, I've just found that explaining things and the logic behind them and where you're coming from with what you think is an approach to an important situation is often respected, and that's the direction that you end up running. You know, it's not like we butt heads with our manager and then they just do something that we totally disapprove of and think is going to ruin the shop, and we let that happen. You know, it's still your business, but it's way easier to give people that power, and at least if you've found a good manager or someone you trust and have developed over the years, they probably won't betray that. But that's like the highest level, right? Is you're getting to a point where even kind of big decisions about your business are not being made by you, or at least solely by you. So it is totally possible, like this process of delegating bit by bit and ending up where you're more outside and able to, you know, not just work on your business as opposed to in it, but really like be around to guide it as opposed to even working on it as directly.
So, I mean, this is a hard question, and not just for float centers. Like this is one of the toughest parts about running a business is you have a vision and you maybe and most likely have more training in what you're trying to do than the people that you're hiring. Otherwise, they'd be running their own businesses. So. Right. It's the idea
or
of
you're
delegating.
Just the crazy one, and
yeah.
They're the sane ones who are pulling in a regular paycheck, you know?
Yeah, I mean, this is legitimately one of the biggest difficulties in running a business and requires a lot of work, and we've done it well for certain things, even in our business, and we haven't for other things because it's hard, and you got to find the right people, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of planning and work. It takes a lot of work to not have to work.
Yeah, I keep trying to find someone else to come in and record my half of these podcast episodes, but no luck so far. Yeah. Okay, last few tips. Well, I really just had one, so I was hoping that you could come up with number two, and we could like start bouncing them off, you know, lightning round style. So the one tip that I had thought of so far was just don't do things alone. Like whatever it is that you want to delegate out, or whatever tasks you feel like are in your court that staff or anyone else aren't doing right now, just make sure you always have someone around doing them. You know, this is like we use this especially with pump equipment. If you're cleaning a UV bulb or replacing it, or if you're taking out the impeller and cleaning it from here and putting it back in, you know, kind of dismantling your pump and re-bolting it, having someone else around during that process means that now you're not the only one who knows how to do it. And the same goes for working on marketing things and pretty much anything you're doing. I mean, you're paying for that time, so in a sense you're using both your time and paying for someone else's time to accomplish something that you could by yourself. But that is how, just in a very simple way, like if you have a rule where whenever possible, don't be the only one engaging in an activity, people will just slowly and very naturally learn everything that there is to do in your shop.
All right, my tip is just remember to have some flexibility. As you know, if we were a giant business with hundreds of employees, it would be a little easier for us to come up with very specific job descriptions and then fill those job descriptions. But we're not. We're a small business. We don't have that many employees. So for us, it's like we have, you know, these 20-something roles that need to be filled to keep our shop going. And then as we like maybe lose a manager and bring on a new one, we kind of like scramble all those roles up again for who's doing what, because it's kind of weird to say like, okay, manager one, no matter who it is in charge of this thing, and that thing. Like it makes a lot more sense to be like, hey, what's your skill set? Like, okay, maybe you should take this one and you should take this one. And you kind of actually like assign those positions and roles and tasks based off of what someone is already both interested in and good at. That seems to function a lot better than having kind of some artificial rigidity.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I got another one too.
All right.
And I was just gonna say too, I guess the like a really good example of that is we actually went from having two managers who had a division of labor down to a single manager and kind of some like co-managers or sub-managers.
Baby managers.
Yeah, under them. We call them, tacos and taco supremes. But we went from two taco supremes down to one taco supreme. And with that ability of just having roles written out and shuffle them, the ability to shuffle them around, we could totally push off things that he wasn't an expert in down to some other people who could take them on. And you know, that kind of idea of restructuring can be as kind of vast as turning two roles into a single one and delineating some responsibility down a little bit. Okay,
you're gonna another tip.
I know, but now this is exactly why I was going to launch into my tip without saying that, but then I really wanted to get it out. So what I was going to say was for things that are done, I think, daily, weekly, monthly, and especially things that relate to equipment in your shop, like maintaining the float tanks, things like that. Those are all great things to really try and delegate and make sure a lot of, at least two other people, two other staff members in your shop know how to do things like treat the UV bulbs and deal with the pump and even do full water switchovers and things like that, right? And we found that for really skilled labor, so things like, for example, writing press releases or doing website updates or, even as kind of in-depth as legal advice or financial advice, it's harder to get that in-house. And often it's even not as tempting to hire on a single person because they can leave or run off and get busy with their own thing. So I guess if you are thinking about going with agencies for some things, the things that have made the most sense for us to consider running with an agency with or try to contact someone that's a bigger group of people almost rather than an individual is for those high-level, specialized technical tasks where when you want someone who can do this, you want them. And that means often having an agency where they have access to a dozen or a couple dozen people, so like that agency is not going to quit on you or that agency is not going to be on vacation during the couple hours when you need them or something like that. So, I guess that's a little tip for how to decide what you're delegating to staff versus externally.
Yeah, it's kind of like usually in business, you like to have some form of redundancy so that if someone does leave or just gets sick randomly or something, you're not totally screwed. But it's just really hard to do that with the number of staff that we have. So that's kind of one way of having a much more comfortable form of redundancy is hiring out instead of trying to train someone up within your business.
Yeah, so like running your marketing social media might be a good example of that. Having an agency where even if one person leaves, like your web designer is like, oh, I've decided I'm not doing web design anymore. I'm going to culinary school. And it's like, that's it. That's the person who designed your entire website and they had their hands on everything and now they're gone and you need to find someone else. And oftentimes hiring a replacement is hard. And if you went with an agency and one of their staff decides to go to culinary school, they're like, great, David, you have all of Jim's notes.
Right.
Come on, swing in here. And it's from your perspective, it's uninterrupted.
All right. My final tip is,
I thought we were just going to keep rolling with this,
It's been a lot of tips so far, Just remember to talk to people. I mean, I think it's very natural for us as business owners to assume that everybody wants more responsibilities and to move up in the company and to take that sort of stuff on. And that's not really the case. You might in your mind be like, oh man, I'm going to totally nurture this person into becoming this thing. And,
I'm going to totally nurture you. It's so good, funny, sorry.
Groom. That was the word I was looking for. I'm going to groom. I'm going to totally groom this person to take on this role. And you might talk to them and they might just say they don't want to do that at all. They're happy just working at the front desk and doing bookings and that's not up to them. Or they don't want to take on that higher level of work and responsibility and having those conversations early and just being honest and being, listen, I kind of want to move you into this position, but it's going to take some time and I'm hoping that you won't just leave in 6 months. And even if they do end up leaving in 6 months, they're more likely to give you a lot of warning and try to help make a smooth transition if you've kind of had that conversation to begin with.
Yeah, that's a good last tip.
Right.
It's very true. I mean, the first time that happened, it totally shocked me too.
Yeah.
I absolutely thought that people wanted more responsibility and to have ownership over what they're doing and autonomy. And yeah, the first time someone's like, can you just tell me what to do so that I can show up between my hours and not think about it outside of work? I'm like, what?
I don't understand.
People think differently than I do as a human being? What is going on here?
All right.
Okay, well,
there's a lot of answers.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of them were any good, but, there you go.
Sift through it, select some verbs and nouns that work for you, and string them together, yeah.
All right, well, if you guys have other questions, you can go to floatanksolutions.com/podcast.
Send them in there, and we'll just kind of ramble our way through them as usual.
All right. We'll see you later.
Bye, everyone.